How's everyone today? Well, thank God. So it's 8 o'clock, so we're gonna get started. First, we'll go over the ground rules. Are very short, turns out. Just act civilly, treat each other with respect, ask questions about issues, don't attack personalities, all the normal things. We'll start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, then all the legislators will introduce themselves, just who they are, where they represent, and what committee they're on, and then we'll open it up to the floor. Amy is here this time, so we're going to let Amy go first because she never gets to go. But we'll do the pledge first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Alrighty. And so that our new member will know how to do it, we'll start at this end and we'll introduce ourselves.
Joe Ludo, St. Albans City. I serve at House Corrections and Institutions.
Good morning, Ashley Barley, Fairfax in Georgia. I serve as Vice Chair of General and Housing. Quick FYI, the coffee today, there is no decaf, so it's only high test, so sorry about that.
Alan DeMar, I represent Enosburg and Montgomery, and I'm on Healthcare Committee.
Good morning, Senator Bob Norris. I represent Franklin County and the town of Elberg in Glendale County. And I sit on, I'm the Vice Chair of Senate Judiciary, and I sit on Senate Appropriations.
I'm Randy Brock. I live in Swanton, represent, along with Senator Norris, Franklin County and Elberg in the Senate. And I sit on the Economic Development and Housing and General Affairs Committee, and I'm the Vice Chair of that committee. And I also sit on the Finance Committee, which is a committee that raises taxes.
Mean guy. James Gregoire, I am on House Corrections and Institutions as well. I'm the Vice Chair of that committee, and I represent Fairfield, Fletcher, and Bakersfield. Just so we don't interrupt the meeting later, in that corner that's not here right now but will be Matt Walker. He represents Swanton and Sheldon. He's the Chair of Transportation in the House. And over in that corner will be Senator Mattos, who represents Fairfax, I think it's Westford and Milton?
Milton.
Essex. So, and I'm not sure what committee he's on. But.
Gee, it sounds like a boxing match, doesn't it? So my name is Carolyn Brannigan. I live in Georgia, but represent Georgia and Fairfax and have for many years. It's really good to be back over here. I serve on the Ways and Means Committee. I've also been on that committee for many years. And I want to mention, just so you know, that the House also has some say over raising taxes. And some of us always vote no on tax increases for various reasons, although we get along with the Senate.
Well, we vote no also. These two do.
Hi, I'm Lynn Dickinson. I live in St. Albans Town. I represent about 2/3 of St. Albans Town. I serve on appropriations in the House, and I'm a legislative trustee of the Vermont State College Board.
Jack Brigham. I'm the new guy. St. Albans Town, the other third, and St. Albans City. And I'm on House Ag, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
So Senator Mattos is on Judiciary and Finance, right? Is that what you said, Bob? And then, even though I introduced you, you can introduce yourself.
Sounds, I'll go quick. Good morning, I'm Representative Matt Walker. I represent Swanton and Sheldon, and I'm on the House Transportation Committee.
Your Honor.
I'm the chair of the House Transportation Committee. But in the season of frost heaves and potholes, I don't always advertise it.
So we'll start with Amy and go from there.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm Amy Brewer. I'm the health educator at Northwestern Medical Center, and I coordinate the Franklin Grand Isle Tobacco Prevention Coalition. I like to come and pester you all every time, and I brought handouts to make it easier. Would you?
Yep.
Thank you, please. And so I wanted to share with you a little bit about what's going on in tobacco control in our region, starting with the fun stuff on the front of the handout. There was a poster contest for young people to talk about why tobacco is important for people to pay attention to, and we had a majority of the entries were from Franklin County, in fact Montgomery, and so you're getting a couple versions of the posters. They were pretty outstanding. On the back are 3 pieces of information that I'm focused on this year, including how tobacco is related to healthcare costs. We all talk about healthcare costs constantly. Keep in mind that $404 million annually are a result of tobacco use in our state, and that's $93.7 million in annual Medicaid costs caused by tobacco use. Every time that we focus on tobacco, we can help reduce those costs. I talked to middle schools ad nauseum. This year, 169 6th to 8th graders are asked, what's one question you still have about vaping and nicotine that you'd like to know more about? The patterns, this is an open-ended question, the patterns were 15% of them wanted to know why they're still sold and how do you get them. Another 6% asked why flavors are legal and why they're allowed to be marketed to kids. And last year when I asked the question, our 8th graders asked, why are vapes still being sold? Well, 1/3 of 5th graders asked why flavors and why color designs. These are patterns they're picking up. They want to know why those things aren't being regulated. And then the last thing I'm working on, which I'm sure some of you have seen me in the State House with my bucket of vapes, we are collecting them. They are hazardous waste. They needed to be disposed of as hazardous waste, and they cost about $3 to $5 to dispose of, according to the friends at Northwest Solid Waste. And we've so far collected, how many have we collected? About 100. I meant to bring them today, but they were in St. Albans and I was not. So if you ever want, I will be in Montpelier in April again and I'll bring them with me. That's what I want to share with you guys. Any questions?
No, but I will say, well, Amy already knows this, that I own a convenience store, and it's just a values thing. Everybody has a right to do what they want. I refuse to sell vapes, but that's me. So other people want to do something, that's on them. But the other thing that Amy and I have talked about many times is that a lot of vapes that you see out there aren't even legal by the federal government. And people will ask, well, how can they be sold? I mean, they'll even be sold through wholesalers, although we worked pretty hard over the last few years, from when I was on Human Services to now, to get wholesalers in Vermont to be aware that some of the products that they were buying that are illegal. And if it's on the market, how would it be illegal? But that's the funky system at the federal government level, which is not new. So it is an issue.
There are only 39 that are approved to be sold or marketed. They're not approved as safe, they are approved to be marketed.
Yep.
And none of the ones that we've confiscated at schools and that I've collected are those 39.
Yep, go ahead.
Amy, is there any legislation at the State House we should be following this year?
S-198. It is a large bill just passed out of Senator Brock's long title, Economic
Development, Housing, and General Affairs.
That's the one. It is a big bill. It would have tobacco licenses be not a freebie with an alcohol license, have it be its own license with its own fee. It would create penalties, increased penalties on the retailers for selling to youth, not a couple $100s, but they added zeros to all of those, so it's instead of $200 for selling, it's $2,000 or so on and so forth. It would eliminate the sale of products that look like school supplies, like highlighters, or characters. There's more, but it is heavy in the retail, asking those folks that if it's gonna cost $404 million every year, that they should pay for a license to sell the product,
Okay,
and so on and so forth.
thank you. We'll watch for that.
Thank
So
you.
it's coming to the House, coming into the House
Right.
now.
Yep.
Yeah, just passed out.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I can look at the bill, so if you don't know the answer, it's fine. Does it also raise the fines for the people who actually sell it, i.e. the people at the counter? Or does it just pass the liability onto the owner who may not even be there?
I don't know the answer
Okay,
to
I'll look
that.
into it. Thank you. Do you know?
I don't believe it does. I think it was focused on the owner rather than individuals, but this is one of those gigantic bills.
Yeah.
It was not designed to be a revenue raiser, though, in terms of, it's really designed to provide the controls and also the infrastructure to better regulate it.
Okay, thank you. one issue that will certainly come up and that's a hot topic is education. And so just to let you guys know where that stands in committee, I think everybody in the room would like to see it to be further along than it is, maybe by years, but at least by months. Anyway, so the current language that's in the House Education Committee eliminates supervisory unions, school choice, and restricts independent schools to the four historic academies. Then there is a compromise proposal that eliminates SUs but preserves school choice and the 18 independent schools that were allowed from last year. That's pretty much what I know about what's going on in there. It's so fluid. They haven't made changes to the map lines yet. And of course, the House committee, really the chair and the Senate chair, they have very different views of what they want to see as well. So it's going to be quite the barn burner, nail biter, or however we want to say it at the end of the day. Yes, ma'am.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Of course you can.
Just for those who are in Fairfax and who I've talked to who are really concerned about where Fairfax is going, especially after we redistricted the district itself, both in the House and the Senate maps, while I don't believe you can vote just on the map, you have to look at the legislation. As of right now, Fairfax is not with Chittenden County for both maps.
That's
So
right.
I've spoken to many people in the town who are very concerned about that, but we are not Chittenden County when it comes to the school maps.
Okay. And now I'll open it up to the so when you speak, if you could just introduce yourself, where you're from, and then state your question. Thank you.
Okay, hey, Carl Rosenquist, former state representative, representing Georgia, Vermont. I just wanted to thank all of you for the passage of the bill that granted tax exemption to a portion of military pensions. As I was doing my taxes, it made a significant difference to me as they did them this year, and I really appreciate all that every one of you did. I'm sure persuaded the rest of the legislature to go along with you. So I applaud you for that, and thank you very much.
So that bill came out of our committee, and to clarify, it is for military retirees who are receiving a pension. So most of these guys had to be in the military at least 20 years to be eligible to collect the pension. But this means that they don't have to pay income tax on any of that pension money. Other revenue that you get or other income that you get, you will continue to have to pay tax on, but not the military pension. And that should show clearly on your tax return. But if you have any questions, call the it's the military guys in Montpelier who advise you on health care and money and all kinds of things. What is that office
VA.
called? The VA
But it's the state VA.
in Montpelier.
Yeah.
Randy had
Thank
something
you
to add.
very much.
Great.
I'd
Oh, good.
add that this is something that we've been trying to pass for, it's gotta be 10 years now, and we got it through in 2005. But there is still a problem with it. It manages to cover most military retirement, but any total retirement income for a family that exceeds a certain level, and that level is about $120,000, is taxable for state taxes. That may seem like a lot, but a family with 2 teachers will hit that level, and they don't get military retirement, and that defeated one of the main purposes of the bill. One of the purposes of the bill was to make Vermont equally attractive as states around the country to military retirees. Right now, we're one of only 3 states that doesn't fully exempt military retirement. We still have a cap like that $120,000, and that will kill our ability to attract many of the kinds of people that we need in order to fill our workforce shortages. So we do have a bill in again, and whether it'll get acted on this year, the problem was in the House. We passed it in the Senate, and we hope that we'll be able to do something by the end of the year, but we're going to continue working on it because it is really an essential element of our workforce development strategy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think that bill had two other elements too, which raises the social security exemption from 50 to 55, which is more comprehensive. There'll be more takers for that, obviously. And the child tax credit went from age 5 to age 6, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So, it steps in the right direction, but yes, not where it needs to be, certainly.
Thank you.
Next. Yes, sir, in the back.
Steve Rye, Georgia. I heard on PBS the other day there might be some proposed legislation about the military air guard needing approval from the governor in order to go on missions. And as went in the Marine Corps in 1972, I saw a lot of people coming back from Vietnam. They were physically and verbally abused. The Air Guard needs our support. The job they do is a hard job, thankless job in some cases, but they don't need some political fight here in Montpelier. They need our support.
Thank you. I know that there is talks about that. It's not constitutional, so it really, I mean, somebody can be against deployments. That's perfectly fine. I have no problem with somebody feeling a certain way. But under the law, if the federal government activates the Guard, that's the law. We can't stop it. So we'll see how that turns out. Unfortunately, some people are not able to separate how they feel about things and what the law says about things, and they're often two different things. And sometimes, I mean, it happens to me. There's things that I don't like, but I'm like, well, it's the law. How do I change the law? But sometimes, if it's a constitutional issue, you are not changing it at the state level, right? So, and as a veteran, and I know Randy's a veteran too, I definitely understand and agree with the point that nobody in uniform deserves to be accosted for their service. So, all of us are free today in this room because of people who wore uniforms, and that's just the truth. So, next question. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Sally Sweet from Fairfax. I have had the problem of having someone ruin some property with an automobile. Well, it's actually a truck, but same difference. And the officer did not get the insurance information. I have since tried to get it through our insurance company and the court system. And the answer is, if the officer doesn't get it, he can't go back and get it because he cannot change the crash report. Once the crash report has been turned in, they cannot change it, which I can understand that. My problem is, the officer, I say, needs to get that insurance information. If they don't have it, say no insurance. But it's up to the officer to get that insurance information. I can't go back and get it, and nor should I be checking in with the victim. Well, we are the victim, but the person causing the problem should be the one responsible to give the information to the officer. And if the officer can't get it, then the officer, I feel, needs to go knock on that person's door because they aren't answering the phone, they won't give them information. But it shouldn't be up to the victim to have to get that insurance information. And so, right now, we have a cemetery who is out money because we cannot get insurance information. We don't even know if he has insurance. But something needs to change in the law, that they don't turn in the crash report until they get insurance information. And who is insured. And it has happened to 2 other people here in town that I'm aware of. no insurance information. Maybe they've got it, but there's no big lot where you can call someone and say, can you tell me if Joe Blow has insurance? There isn't a clearinghouse for it. And I think that needs to be addressed. I know all the officers have plenty to do without that, but it shouldn't be up to the victim to have to get that. I do not believe.
Bob?
Yes, thank you for that question. That's a grave oversight on the officer's part, obviously. I mean, when it comes to some form of an accident, right after your name should be an insurance company listed on the form here, because it is on the form. This sounds like an internal problem. I don't know who you're dealing with the agency. I would suggest that you call back the agency, speak to the supervisor in charge, and let them know exactly what's going on. The officer has the ability to go back. They have a copy of the form also in their files, to go back and make contact with the individual and obtain whether or not they do have valid insurance. And if they don't, then they can issue whatever's needed at that particular point in time as far as a ticket or whatever else. But yeah, that's a grave oversight. It shouldn't happen. And you're right, it's not up to the victim or victims to get that information. So I would contact, we don't need to know what agency was, but I would call back and ask to speak with the supervisor and let them know exactly what's going on.
The information that I had gotten back from them, that once that crash report has been submitted, they can't change it.
That may be. We're not asking them to change it. We're asking them to get information for the victim involved in this. What we're asking for here. We're not asking for them to change information with the Department of Motor Vehicles. But you need that information, and anybody else who's involved in some type of crime such as this needs that information.
And the other thing is, supposedly the state of Vermont requires liability insurance.
Yes, they do.
Where does someone find out if they've got liability? Their
Well-
vehicle is registered, but I don't remember ever checking anything off on my registration that I have liability insurance.
You need to have insurance to get your vehicle inspected.
Right.
Okay, and upon inspection, that's part of the forms that they will ask for when you're inspecting your vehicle. As far as the registration is concerned, anybody can register a vehicle and have it sit in their backyard and not even drive it for the entirety of their registration. So, but you need it for the inspection form. But I would suggest you call back and obtain this information. If not, you certainly can reach out. I'm not in Fairfax. I don't cover Fairfax, but I'd be more than happy to follow up with this with you. R. Norris, same as everybody else, is at alleged.state. Send me something, and at that particular point in time, you can at least release that information to me as to who you're dealing with and so on and so forth, which agency, and I will definitely follow up on that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Julie Filiberti in Fairfax. I know somebody said they were on the healthcare committee. Is that the House or the Senate?
House.
The House. So I'd like to address the elephant in the room in the state, which is the cost of healthcare and how it really underlies the tax problem in this town and probably every town in the state. And I guess my question, if there is a question here, is why it's not the flashing red light to address how we're gonna deal with this in the state of Vermont. I know there was a bill that was introduced into the House Committee last February, H 433, about universal primary health care. And the calculations for that, if we were as a state to implement for the first year universal primary health care, it's a total cost of about $44 a person a month, which is way under what I'm paying a month for healthcare by, I don't even know what the percentage is. But I guess if you could just address where we are with healthcare legislation, that would be great.
Well, our healthcare committee has passed 5 bills in a week here, so did any of them really help the affordability of healthcare? I don't think so. Okay, we have a severe problem with our healthcare affordability. Last year we did put the Green Mountain Care Board involved, and I see we got a gentleman from St. Albans Hospital up here. But they have worked with all the hospitals in the state of Vermont, and they've saved a few money in administration fees. I think next year, I believe in 227, there'll be a reference-based pricing instituted, and that's supposed to help. But they still, everybody blames everybody. They blame the insurance company, they blame the hospital. We have a problem with affordability. As far as your universal health care bill, I haven't seen that, okay? It might be on, it might be, but we got 77 bills on that wall in our healthcare committee. 77. And I think we have about 900 bills total in the House. It's flabbergasted me for that. We cannot do the diligence needed for 77 bills on our healthcare wall. We did pass a few. I think we passed one a while back, was a new drug card savings plan. We'll see if it works or not. We did some healthcare insurance reform just this past week. And we did another one with prohibit certain financial transactions. What that is banning private equity coming in and buying up some of our clinicians, our health clinics and hospitals. But again, it does help with the overall cost, but it's not the fix. You know, I just last night I was listening, I think, or yesterday, you can quote me, and Dr. Leffler said that he made a quote about healthcare costs. We have too many low-income payers or non-payers, and we have too many seniors that are in need of assistance. And until we address that, I haven't seen a fix down there. I think the hospitals have all done a great job. I know St. Albans has, and not saying that because you're here, but St. Albans has done, and some of the other hospitals, but there's a lot more work needs to be done. I'd say what's going to work, there's experts out there that could probably answer that better than I can. But until then, I think we just got to stop band-aiding stuff and look at the whole picture.
And that is one of the problems that we have, just as people and legislators for sure, is put a lot of band-aids on big wounds. And people have different moral values that lead to different policies. Vermont is the highest in the country for healthcare delivery and for healthcare insurance. That tells you, although America itself has high healthcare, the fact that we're the highest, that tells you that's a state policy issue that makes it that higher compared to other states. And you can compare other states of what they do versus what we do, and look at it and you say, well, okay, what have we done? I mean, whether somebody likes community rating or dislikes community rating, that drove costs up. It drove insurance companies out. That doesn't mean it's bad. Maybe we just need to do it in a different way. I don't know the answer to that. But I do know that if we're not willing to step back and look at the whole picture like holistically and stop doing Band-Aids, we're not going to fix the problem. That's for sure. Whether it's a regional coalition or something else, I don't know. But I do know that a lot of things that we do, I say we in quotation marks, with good hearts ends up making things more expensive, and not just in healthcare. So, yes, Karen.
Yeah, I'd like to address some of that issue because these problems we have are all interconnected. One of the problems with primary care is getting providers to come and stay here and live here. And one of the problems they have, whether you're a doctor or a nurse or any number of things, but a lot of them are primary care physicians who are among the lowest paid physicians in the state in all of the medical specialties. They have huge debts left over from medical school. Even with loan repayments, it's difficult. They can barely afford to buy a house. First of all, they can't find a reasonably priced house, and they can't afford the $500,000 starter homes that we now have in the state. I mean, they have anywhere from $2 to $500,000 worth of debt. You can borrow it all if you go to medical school, absolutely every single dime. And you have got this unsecured, non-collateralized debt. You know, you got a mortgage in your brain. And the banks will not, that deducts from what you can borrow to get a mortgage to buy a house. And so it's a housing issue. Oh, it's a housing issue in terms of our grant list. It's a housing issue in terms of our education. It's a housing issue for everything. We don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough people who stay here, who can afford to live here, especially among our young people, including our children. So it's all interconnected.
The other thing I forgot to mention, I'll go back over here, is so there's initiatives in different states. I think it's Maine that we were talking to someone about, where Blue Cross over there, and Jonathan will remember this, that they incentivize people to go to a cheaper provider. So just pretend, NMC is $600 for an X-ray and UVM is $1,500. The actual insurance company might cut you a check for $300 and say, please go to NMC. If you go there, they'll reward you. And it seems like an odd way to do that, but incentivize behavior to get people to go to a cheaper place, right? But if, that's just one, but it's a Band-Aid. It's a small Band-Aid. It's not fixing the problem. But somebody over here wanted to, Ashley.
Thanks so much, Julie. I think one thing, while I can't speak for all of us, I think we all feel very strongly that we're willing to speak about any bill. One of the things that becomes difficult is if you're not a chair, and please ignore the individual who is a chair right now, sometimes it's really hard to get a bill taken up. I have 2 bills in healthcare that, and I know, I introduced them knowing that they probably wouldn't be taken up. But that being said, that unless you are a chair, you really have the decision making of what bills are taken up and what are not. I think a lot of our chairs have really difficult jobs. Every year. But because we have so many issues facing Vermont, so I'm happy to talk with you offline about 433. I'll have to do more research. But a lot of times it's really up to the chair's decision on whether or not that moves. And I haven't heard if it's not, but sometimes it is really hard when you aren't the chair to say, hey, we have this bill on the wall. I think it would be really great. Here's how it could move. And sometimes it's just not taken up for a multitude of different reasons.
Is there any way to push that?
My recommendation is you can reach out to the chair. So it's a House bill. So the chair is Rep. Alyssa Black. She's in Essex. I would say reach out. What you can do is you can send an email to the entire committee. That has worked very well.
Yep. And Jonathan has something in him.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, well, getting to that, like I said, we had 77 bills on our wall. I have talked to the chair on probably a half a dozen where constituents of mine have asked to at least look at these bills. I have asked to get them down. This one, she's got 2, would like to discuss.
They're real great.
But we should be discussed. I don't have that option, okay? The makeup of our healthcare committee is 11 members. You have a chair, vice chair, and the majority party has got the majority, 8, 7 or 8, and they determine, or the chair determines what bills will be looked at, and it's frustrating. So it's very frustrating, and it's not just my committee. Like I said, we got 900 bills. It's got to be frustrating all the way across the board. So I will mention it to my chair.
Thank you.
Jonathan?
Good morning, I'm Jonathan Billings, live in St. Albans and currently serving as interim CEO at Northwestern Medical Center, but I'm a longtime chief operating officer at the hospital as well. Appreciate the conversation. It's something that NMC is working hard on in terms of our own approach. NMC ranks by the Green Mountain Care Board statistics as one of, if not the lowest overall cost hospitals in the state of Vermont. It's an excellent point, though, that Vermont's high. And so just being the lowest cost doesn't mean that we're not too expensive as well. At the same time, we are trying to balance sustainability for the hospital. Housing is an important issue that you don't think of as healthcare, both in our ability to recruit and retain nurses, but also in our ability to place patients. We have a patient at NMC right now who's been there more than 300 days, and we have not been paid for her care because she is subacute, she's awaiting placement, a proper place to live in the community. We just were able to place one individual who'd been here more than 200 days. And so as we work on expanding housing in Vermont and you look at long-term care, inpatient mental health, et cetera, that all helps with the acute care setting. Earlier, I guess it would have been last week, not earlier this week, but last week, sent a message out to Senator Brock, Senator Norris, because there's a bill that was moving through the Senate, copied Representative DeMar and the chairs of the delegation, just on some advocacy around S190, which is the reference-based pricing bill, which would begin to tie hospital prices to what Medicare pays. There is a path forward with that if done thoughtfully and intentionally and over the proper amount of time. Broad brush is hard to do. If you just take the highest cost prices and pull them down, that will help with pricing. But for us as a lowest cost hospital, it takes away our revenue that's keeping us open. The Green Mountain Care Board has published graphs that show how hospital pricing compares across the state. Green Mountain Care Board has the existing ability to work with individual hospitals, and rather than do everyone gets a 3% increase, they could go through and say, you folks are low cost, but you're not covering your own costs, we're gonna move you up 2%. They can go to other hospitals and say, you are far beyond what other hospitals are doing, far beyond Medicare, we're gonna pull you back. You can imagine that is wildly unpopular across the state in various areas. But it's something that has to be considered. It can't be done overnight. It has to be done intentionally and thoughtfully. And we're willing to be part of that and work with folks. So
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
One of the points that comes up that from Jonathan's talk is that the way we regulate healthcare in Vermont is, in my opinion, punitive to the entities that are more frugal, let's say. Much like your education. Think about your town when you have, you're very thoughtful and you're the town that doesn't raise your spending. And then the other towns raise their spending, and guess what? You have the biggest tax increase you've ever had, right? And that happens a lot in healthcare as well, where the small people, or not small, but the rural hospitals that are trying their best to be frugal and be very thoughtful with their money. And I can tell you that we have multiple meetings a year with NMC. They do a great job. They're very, very thoughtful about how they do things, but they're the type of entity that gets punished in the system that we have, and it's not really fair. So, next question. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mary Fickner. I'm oops, sorry.
I can't
My
Mary Fickner.
side is causing injury this morning. That we probably don't have healthcare to cover. I am the substance misuse prevention consultant with local health at the state of Vermont, and I also have a handout this morning. I started this side. Couple of things. I know I'm going to be talking about alcohol, but I just want to bring to your attention that in Vermont, 1 in 4 deaths, alcohol is attributed to 1 in 4 deaths for folks age 20 to 34, and 1 in 5 deaths for age 35 to 49. But the things, there are little changes. Here's something that I learned this year, right? All these years in substance misuse prevention, and I kind of figured it, but alcohol does cause cancer, right? 38% of the people in this country knew that. I was not one of them in this country, so there's a little fun factoid for you. But also, in talking about ways in which to make, I don't know, maybe a level playing field with alcohol, is like, can we have nutritional labels on things and have across all alcohol, we call is standard drinks per container, right? So if you have a bag of chips today, I mean, there was a time where you could have a big snack size came in 2 sizes, right? But you always just had the amount, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't say that. Now it says 1 serving is, and these bags contains this many servings. So we like that. And when I think of things like, little seltzer, alcohol beverage seltzers as opposed to larger things like, 40s of malt beverages.
Yeah.
Or bottles of alcohol. It'd be nice to have those kinds of things. And then, of course, compliance checks over the years. The checks that are done well, but it would be nice to have them done consistently throughout I would like to see more and consistent. One of the things that we talk about every once in a while is that we'd like to reward people for their good compliance checks, but if you get one every 2 years, I'm not saying that not everybody isn't doing the right thing, but one check in 2 years is hard to reward something. And then the last thing down here is there's some little information on NHTSA, which is the Department of Transportation, and mandatory compliance checks at the bottom. So that is my little piece, but I do want to take my little state thing off, my little state thing, and my name's Marion Peckner, and I live one-time resident in St. Albans town, and I'm gonna get emotional because I've lived here a long time, and I've had the opportunity to live overseas, and I do thank people for their service because when I was younger, it saved my life. But coming back here, I am incredibly connected to the land here and my family that's here, and my children are too, and they're not gonna be able to stay here, and I am not gonna be able to stay here because of the house. And the other day, we were talking about the movie Last of the Mohicans, and you see that beautiful land there, and I thought, back in the day, when you had to freeze the video, I was like, where is this great place? It has to be the Adirondacks, it has to be Vermont. It has to be Vermont, right? Because there's no more beautiful place. Turns out it's North Carolina that it was filmed in. But I just am heartbroken that when we had our town meeting, legislative meeting in my town, that $400,000, $500,000 is a starter home. And it's just heartbreaking, and
It is.
and like I said, I'm closer to retirement than I am to starting my career, and I am a licensed social worker, and, you need people like me in this state, and I can't afford to stay here, and, my children love this land as much as I do, and they can't afford to stay, and don't usually try to keep my emotions in check, but it's really bothering me, because now, as a family, we're trying to figure out where we can settle together. And I always just thought it would be here, because that's the way it's always been. And it's not, so thank you for letting me there.
You're welcome. And the unfortunate reality, because it is a reality, is that conversation happens across family after family after family, including people up here. We look and can we afford it? I'm certainly not rich. I can tell you that for free. My bank tells me on a regular basis. It is horrible that you can't stay where you grew up, where you lived, and the harder part for me is if I thought people were being malicious, then I could go to battle, so to speak, in a much harder way and say, listen here, you piece of, But everybody who's driving up costs, one way or another, thinks they're doing right. And sometimes they are. And it comes with a cost. And sometimes what people think is going to save money or be better for people with deeper thought actually isn't, is counterintuitive. And so it's so much harder to have those conversations. And then, of course, people get... emotions is one thing, but get very vitriolic when you're trying to have conversations. Like, hey, listen, we're not going to solve a housing crisis or a healthcare crisis or any other crisis if people are yelling at each other and calling each other names, which is about the only time I ever walk away from a conversation. Like, you want to call me a name and that you don't even know what it means, then I'm probably not going to talk to you. But we have to be able to have these conversations, but we also have to be rational. And it brings up what actually, Matt just said it on the floor the other day. We repealed a bill, basically intent, for all intents and purposes, repealed a bill for the PCBs. Now that Burlington has got their money for the, reconstruction of their school at under a bill that raised that the measures to 5 times greater than the national level. I'm not saying anybody was doing anything malicious, but it sure does look funny. I got mine, and now we're changing the law back. But we told the majority back when it happened, listen, there's going to be ramifications for this. No, you just don't want anything. When there was people waiting a couple years ago, we said, listen, if you put a cap in that says that they can only, the town's tax rate or school's tax rates are only going to go up so much, people are going to spend like drunken sailors. How dare you say that? Those speeches over and over. Our communities, Franklin County, did a great job of holding the line. But there were some that went 20 and 30%, and every one of us got screwed because of that. And then next year, we had to come back and do a half-baked fix. So I don't find it the least bit hilarious or humorous that people get into their little zone. And I'm a big, the echo chamber is probably my biggest speech that I ever give, and I talk about it on a regular basis. I don't care right, left, or center, or apolitical. People are in their echo chambers, and if you're not able to see out here, this is the crap we end up with. And it's a lot worse than most people think. And I don't mean to bogart the time, but I get very angry about the stuff that's going on because people just don't seem to be aware. We say we balance our budget, that's true. But what people don't think about is the billions of dollars in unfunded mandates for pension liabilities, because people in the past in the legislature wanted to save $5 million or $10 million and go home and tell their constituents, I didn't raise taxes. Well, you did, because now we're getting screwed because of it. We have billions of dollars in deferred maintenance on state properties that we'll never be able to catch up with. And, a $10 fix is now a $1,000 fix. And I can go down the list over and over, IT, everything you can think of, because people wanted to rush through, or they wanted to be able to go home and say, I didn't raise taxes, or some other kind of baloney, and we're paying for it. And we'll never be able to get out, and we won't even get into the $30 trillion at the national level. We have to be able to put the brakes on and have rational conversations with each other. And I think a lot of people can, but a lot of people can't, and that's a problem. So, anyways, Tim.
Thank you all. Tim Smith, St. Albans. This is more a personal comment more than a work comment. I spoke to Bob about this. And you talk about silos and whatnot. And you guys pass, I don't know how many bills you pass a year, but unless it's, you really are active and really focus on them and which ones affect you, you pretty much don't follow everything closely. Well, last summer, my daughter was in need of treatment for an illness she was going through, and we were told of an additional care measure that we could partake in. So we called the insurance company to ask them if that treatment would be covered by insurance. Basically, we were told, we cannot talk to you unless your 14-year-old daughter signs off on this permission for us to talk to you. Now, I know in some worlds, some minor pieces, there may be an instance where a 14-year-old knows better than their parents, but the majority of them, I would say, do not know what the implications are of these actions, whether they choose or not choose to follow through. I talked to Bob about it, and I understand this was passed 2 or 3 years ago. And once again, you don't know what the impacts are until you live it. And we had to delay that discussion 2 days. We had to get a form. We had to have my daughter sign it. We signed it. We sent it back to Blue Cross Blue Shield. They lost the form. We had to track it down. But the bottom line is, for us as a state to entrust the care of our minors to themselves is just ridiculous. And Bob and I talked about it. Yeah, and I don't think it's going to get changed at any time soon. But I just think people need to be aware of it, that that's what's happening with our insurance companies and with the policy. So And Bob encouraged me to come today just to share that firsthand because we did encounter it. And fortunately, my daughter understood what was going on and signed off. But if she didn't sign off, we would never have been able to move forward with that discussion.
Yeah. And so I know other people have something to say about this, but as we talked about the other day, when that bill came up, we were primarily overwhelmingly at this table were in a position that we said, listen, there are extenuating circumstances where a minor may need to get healthcare for whatever reason without the parents' knowledge, but that there should be a system through the legal, like courts or guardian ad litem or whatever type of system to do that. And we were overruled that it had to be a blanket statement, and I, to this day, will still oppose it. The idea that a minor can overrule the parents and without having extenuating circumstances is just plain crazy. I thought Randy had something, but go ahead, Don.
I hear you. We deal with that a lot, and it's political, and I hate to get too political, but I'm the one that don't care, I guess. But until we get a better balance down there, this is happening, and that's only one story of many of youths having more control than their parents. We just did a mental health bill that we're trying to institute into the school systems. Well, I don't think I voted for it. I'd have to check, but I don't believe I voted for it because there was no parent consent. So same things you're talking about, and we just promoted more of that, and it's very frustrating for the minority party. So it is political. Sorry. Thank you.
That's right.
Did you have your hand up?
I will if Carolyn wasn't having hers up.
Did you have your hand up?
Nope.
I just wanted, it sounds self-serving, but I don't mean it like this. I've been here a long time. Franklin County is not the problem with this stuff. It's the more liberal areas, Bennington, Brattleboro, Burlington, we tend to vote the way you guys are expressing out there. But we get lost in every single vote still. Last election, we acquired enough new members to sustain a gubernatorial veto. That now is all we can do. Every vote on the floor that comes to a majority versus minority, we lose. We lose every vote still. There's not much we can do to help you until that balance changes. And it's not Franklin County who's the problem.
I would welcome the chance to comment on that in terms of the damage that was done by the supermajority is just really starting to come to light. The expense that Mary mentioned about property. If you pass a law that says, first of all, it's incredibly expensive already, and everybody says that we want to conserve land as well. You go in 30 by 30 to be conserved and 50% by 2050. You've taken a land of Vermont and said that by law, half will be unsellable. What do you think that does immediately to the price of the entire rest of it? Skyrockets. And if you think it's expensive now, wait until a few more years. When you put in Act 181 and you have the land use regulations the way they are, we are putting to a spot where a huge swaths of Vermont will have to be the only areas that are subject to Act 250. They'll be drawn out forever. And there's one thing that's worse than the people that own it now not being able to put a house on it, is that the only people that will be able to afford that long process will be more people from out of state with depth of pockets, and you will have the New England State Park, that you will have ridge lines full of incredibly expensive houses. You will have what's happened in Wisconsin, what's happened in Colorado, what's happened in Wyoming, and you are headed very much in that direction. If you take 50% of the land off the market and then you put rules on the rest of it, the only people that can afford to live there are incredibly wealthy with a significant amount of lawyers. That's between 181, between 30 by 30 and 50 by 50, between what happens with everyday activity. What you're going to learn over the next couple of years is the damage that's done during the supermajority is incredible to the people that I know that were born and raised here, like myself, like many of the rest of them here. That spike in value of land is only worthwhile when I sell it. But if I want to live on it, I can't afford it.
And that's the truth. Chris, welcome.
Hey,
This is
thank
Senator
you.
Matos.
Sorry, I had to drop my two boys off at daycare. So, glad to be here this morning.
Thank you. And, yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a question relative to education. My name's Dr. Roy B. Hill II, 20 years in Fairfax, 40 years in Vermont. As I raise my question, I'm reminded that a woman once said, "How can you tell when a lawyer is lying?" And her answer was, when they move their lips. I don't say that about politicians. But what I do say is that every one of us in this room have one thing in common. We are terminal. We're terminal. And in this little space that we have here on planet Earth, I think we create unnecessary hurdles for ourselves. Politicians are great talkers, and that which they don't want to address, they kick down the road, kick the can down the road. The other thing that we have, you around the table, you in Montpelier, is that we benefit from education. Teachers, education. Our tax dollars afford six-figure incomes for people in education. They're supposed to be representing our children and our community, and by extension, our country. My question is, as we look at the stats, the research, we are behind the education 8-ball unnecessarily. We aren't putting our brain power there. Many committed teachers can't afford to teach. A number of them not only go into their own pocket in terms of supplies for the classroom and helping students who act out. Many of them have 2 jobs, and they're trying their darndest. It's not always about the money, but it is about the commitment and what is the end game in terms of our students. Occasionally I do some substitute teaching down at the school. And I remember once, this little clique, oftentimes you can have some knuckleheads in the classroom. And so I said to them, went over to the group, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the guy stops there, we're gonna be cops. You're gonna be cops, why? We're gonna keep the peace. And as opposed, I said, look, I'm not gonna send you down to the counseling office, so on and so forth. Because my sending you down there is not about why your parents sent you to school. You know better. You know better. And so let's look the problem in the eye. You take a look in your mirror. And you decide whether or not you're doing the right thing here in this classroom. They quieted down. They did the right thing. We're not doing the right thing. We're doing a heck of a lot of talking in Montpelier. We're doing a heck of a lot of talking in Washington, D.C. But we aren't speaking to the fundamental. It's almost as if, well, we aren't going to listen unless it's a woman talking, or unless it's a white guy talking, or those Native Americans over there. We don't want to hear anything they have to say. The truth, the solution, is not confined to your gender. It's not confined to the zip code in which you live, or whether you are blue state or red state or Democratic, Republican, whatever. I remember when I first met Jim Douglas. That was when he was treasurer or something like that. Then he decided to run, and I introduced him to a lot of people. We were living in, Chittenden County at that time. And afterwards, he says, Roy, if you hadn't introduced me to those neighborhoods and those people, I never would have talked to them. I never would have talked to them. Thank you. So my question is, A, and if I sound like a preacher, I apologize. One foot's in education, others in the church. In the Baptist churches, that those Baptist preachers, sometimes they don't know when to shut up. But I didn't say that, amen. No.
It's on camera now.
But what's your priority? How can we resolve this stuff that's really jeopardizing not only the adults, the teachers, but our children, our future? Whenever we want to go to war, nobody says a question about the budget. Here it is, every year. Department of Defense does the dog and pork cow. How much more money do you want? If we really want to talk about defense, in my opinion, we really want to talk about security. It's about educating our boys and our girls, maintaining, keeping our teachers. You read, you write, whether one language or more, because of a teacher, because of your daughter, so on and so forth. Somebody over here talked about, I think it was called the Buckley Amendment that came out that says that, you can't talk to your child unless, what is it? Something about, whatever that law is, that a parent cannot talk to his child unless, or the school, about the child unless the parent has the child's permission or something like that. I remember when that thing came down. That doesn't make sense. You wiped this child's butt and you fed them and so on and so forth. And any psychologist, any therapist will tell you there's a developmental thing between the ears that doesn't take place until and at a certain age. They don't have that cognizance and so on and so forth. No right or wrong. We know that. We know that. Yet we allow those laws. We allow those laws. We human. We mortals. We allow those laws to take place. We're jeopardizing ourselves. We're shooting ourselves in the foot. There are solutions. And you're in that seat. They'll bring that solution to the forefront. And you and I know that it's there and you don't want to touch it because you might not be reelected. You may not want to touch it, so you kick it down. You kick the can down the road and it goes into the next session and the next session. As I said, 40 years here, I've seen it. When I was in Washington, some 10 years, I saw it. But the other thing that during those 10 years I was there, the Democrats and the Republicans talked to each other. They even had quartets, they sang together. We need to sing a new song. We need to sing a new song. Hey, what is the priority? What do you feel you will accomplish this session? And truly, what is the future? Because when we do this, then we can move on. We can move on to other issues which are coming down the pipe. Whether it's the environment or our infrastructure across the country, in the state, our bridges, so on and so forth. The drug use, very sophisticated drug use that our kids are using. sex has become recreational, so on and so forth. And a lot of it is in rebellion to the adults. These kids know what they need. A number of them do. We have kids coming out of BFA, going to Harvard, going to UVM, so on and so forth. They're smart. They're smart enough to know that we as adults aren't doing it. It's painful. It's painful. See? We adults are doing the children. To the children, to our community, and to our country. You can do better. Thank you for having this forum. Thank you for at least trying. Try harder.
Thank you. I know this corner of the table, Carolyn and I have spent a lot of time in education. We were both teachers. She was a principal at one point. She likes to point out that I was a child in the school when she was the principal. She gets me messed up with my brother who talked a lot. I was quiet. I know I was quiet because my kids' teachers would always say, "Boy, it's hard to believe he's your kid," because he always talked a lot. But I really appreciate the point of kicking the can down the road, which is something I mentioned before, of all this, the liability that we have built up. Because it is, we kick the can down the road all the time. But education, when I look at it, and everybody's going to have a different opinion, whether we agree or disagree on how much we spend, one of the biggest problems in education and society is the lack of discipline and respect. And you get back to those core values, you'll see a lot of things change. And the schools can't be all things to all people. They were not meant to be all things to all people. You need to get back to basics. So there's a lot of issues that need to be fixed, but we have to be able to have those conversations that a lot of people are willing to have. I was just thinking about this yesterday. You mentioned, having the Republicans and Democrats in a quartet in Washington. And a lot of us are very close friends with our colleagues. One of my closest friends is a progressive. We agree on a lot of stuff actually, but we just have different ways of solving the problem. You have to have those conversations. But anyway, did you have something to say? No? Yes, Ashley.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hill. And I just want to share, I was invited to judge the state champions for debate in Vermont this weekend. And I think it's fair to say in Montpelier, we debate a lot. It's not like that formal debate. It was terrifying. These students were so much smarter than I think I'll ever be. And I left it feeling really encouraged that, and I'll be the first person to say, I don't have all the answers. I don't think any of us have all the answers. These students might. And I think if we can continue to support them, support their education, support the education of the students that are coming after them, I left feeling very inspired and incredibly intimidated. But it's a good message that I think we have to work with everybody. Our students are our constituents, not even if they're not 18. They still have to live with the laws, with the rules that we're implementing. And sometimes they ask really great questions. Why do we do this? Why don't we do that? And I think it helps us have a more holistic approach to the work that we do in Montpelier.
Well, and the other thing I wanted to say before we switch topics was that you mentioned not being about red or blue. And I mean, when it comes to education, I harp on the fact that Massachusetts, last time I checked, it was one state over. They ranked number one. And I jokingly say I hate pointing to Massachusetts as being good at something, but they're number one. And I was like, why are we not? It doesn't mean that what they do will work here. That's just not how it works. But why aren't we looking closer at what they do? Because they're number one no matter what cohort you push, how you divide it. They're number one. There's got to be something there.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Actually, it isn't Massachusetts anymore. It's called the Mississippi Miracle, and what they created down there. And we talked about this with the Department of Education, who came in. Their test scores are much higher. Louisiana is following them. Alabama is doing the same thing. These were people who, these were communities and states that had a lot of low income, a lot of black population, a lot of things that were working against them. And what they decided to do is they decided to go with, I think they call it scientific-based reading learning. It's called phonics, I think, for most of us, but they have created accountability for their communities and their schools. Accountability for the kids, accountability for the teachers, accountability for the schools, and they have had the backbone to stand by it. But the first 3 grades, basically, from K through 3, is you have to learn how to read. And the same holds true for math, because math, numbers and symbols are basically another language, but you have to learn how to read it and at 3rd grade on, 4th grade on, you have to read to learn. So if you don't have the learning to read by the 3rd grade, you are at a disadvantage all the way up from there. And they will go and hold students back if they don't pass these reading tests that they require of these students. And everybody enforces it, everybody has an agreement on it, and they are now called the Mississippi Miracle. And it's, well, our situation is that we've gone way down. You know, we've had fewer students, but our test scores are declining. I mean, you have to have the backbone and the ability, and you talk about kicking the can down the road. Somebody down there said, we're not gonna put up with this anymore, we're not gonna kick the can down the road. And what we're seeing, I think, right now in our education transformation is we're seeing people who are just trying to avoid changing anything, and they're kicking the can down the road. It's not gonna help our students, it's not gonna help our taxpayers. We're still gonna have high property taxes because we're going to have to go back to what we already have. And we know it doesn't work, and we have to make that commitment. So, you know, Dr. Hill, you're right. And people are doing it. You don't have to, I mean, Massachusetts used to be #1, but even Massachusetts has fallen below Mississippi. I mean, that's an incredible achievement for those southern states.
Joe?
But also, I think to a piece of Dr. Hill's point, you know, there was a bill that came out of House Commerce in the last couple of weeks that speaks about barring anti-competes and enforceability of certain franchises, you know, whereby, you know, if a fellow works at for a grain company, he's a grain trader, and he gets fired, you know, you have to let him work in his trade, or her trade. And there are certain you know, you get a newer person trying to enter in the business world, and they can get in really predatory franchise agreements, and it would have barred the provisions there, because it's almost like a form of servitude in some cases because the relationship is so unbalanced. Anyway, bill comes out to the floor on a bipartisan basis. NEA gets a hold of it and decides that they want to add some language for educators, and all of a sudden the bill just goes away. It goes back to the committee and dies. And the real moral of the story is you have certain special interest groups, and there are certain members who are scared to death that if they cross them, that they're not going to be reelected, and that's a problem. And I hope what happened with that Commerce bill is not indicative of what our outcomes are for education delivery reform this year.
Another question? Good time for about Zach.
Yeah, Zach Scheffler, St. Albans City. I was looking for an update from Senator Brock and Representative Luna. Luna is chair of the County Republican Party, and I've spoken with Brock, and he's chatted with members of the state Republican Party. You have a self-described, avowed neo-Nazi as a town chair in Berkshire, Ryan Roy, who has a voting voice on your county Republican committee. I was curious if the county party or its legislators were or had made a statement about that, or taken any action. I think Senator Brock, we were talking about the action part. I was just looking for some articulation about any statements that have been made or will be made to the public, to press, to donors about the actions you're taking. Just looking for an update on that.
Well,
I would deeply appreciate it.
Sure. I mean, the only question we've had regarding this is from you, frankly. In the state of Vermont, parties are permitted to reorganize by town. The Berkshire Town Committee, I believe, has 3 or 4 members. I think there are only 2 now who actually live in the community. Once they organize, there is no mechanism to force a resignation or make them withdraw. The town of Berkshire has no town offices that run by party, which formerly was the purpose of some town committees. So, I mean, in practice, there's really no action to be taken. The most immediate remedy is for some individuals from Berkshire to make sure they're there for the next reorganization. And if you go through town committees of various parties, there are hundreds of them throughout the state, I'm sure you're gonna find some individuals who have some very extreme political views on both sides of the spectrum that probably aren't really representative of their communities. That said, I mean, within reason, they have a right to organize. This gentleman is organized a committee, and that's just kind of where it stands. As far as there being a voice on the county committee, that's simply not the case. So, I mean, you can certainly assert that, but it's just patently untrue.
I beg to differ. Just
as a member of the committee, I can tell you that what Joe just said is true, and there's no really beg to differ. If you want us to state that we don't like this guy, that's not a problem. We don't agree with his philosophy, and you know that we don't. You're trying to make it a political issue that's not. And as Joe pointed out, you guys have people that are pretty bad on your side too. You're trying to use this as a tool that it shouldn't be. The guy doesn't represent us. We can't make him resign because that's what the law says. Do we like him? No. Do we agree with him? No. That should be the end of it, Zach. Because that's all we can do. I could come to you every other day and ask you if you condemn somebody else. But I'm not like that. Because I know you don't agree with some extremist that happens to have the same letter next to your name, but also doesn't hold any public office. So if you want to keep playing a game, go ahead and play it. Keep talking about us being the Franklin County Republican delegation instead of the Franklin County Legislative delegation. You know what we didn't do through all of our childhoods when it was all Democrats? We never said it was the Franklin County Democrat delegation. Nobody did. Free and fair elections, respect them. And we respect you. I always treat you with respect and dignity, do I not?
I'll just say I'm simply looking for some accountability from a person who is a delegate to a county committee and can attend county meetings and vote on things. And
He is ostracized in our community, and
Can I
you know
stick
that.
with
Yes, go ahead.
Zach, thank you for bringing this to my attention, because I was unaware of the situation. We certainly do take very, very seriously if we have someone who we think is an extremist or someone who will frankly embarrass our party in a position of some notoriety. But we do have free and fair elections throughout Vermont, and we have this election for county committees and for town committees of particular political parties. In many towns, particularly our smallest towns, those things are not taken very seriously any more than being the fence viewer or a similar type of town office. And in this particular case, 3 people got together, and at least one of the 3 the first time, and 2 of the 3 the first time, and 1 of the 3 the last time, had no idea that this person was politically involved the way he was. What I've done is I've made sure that the leadership of the state party is aware of this, and since this is not the first time this has happened for either party to have someone who could potentially be an embarrassment to us. And the question there is, should there be a procedure in each state party so that if you do have someone you want to remove from an office that's held at the town, there's a process to do that. And the best of my knowledge, there's not a process in any of the political parties to do that. That is currently on the agenda for the state Republican Party to look at and to deal with. But the answer to the question is very, very simple. I will guarantee you at the next reorganization meeting, which is held every 2 years, there's going to be enough people at Berkshire who are going to be there to vote this guy out.
Well, and the thing is, and by the way, so first of all, sorry that I got passionate about that. I get very tired of the Democrat versus Republican thing. I live my life very differently, and anybody who knows me knows this. The party label shouldn't matter as much as they do to certain people. And right is right and wrong is wrong no matter what party it is. So when people get this, that I feel not being genuine about something, it really bothers me. Whether that's true or not, that's how I feel about it. But to Randy's point, we will do everything we can to affect this next election. But what happened last time is nobody knew about it. Because you are required to put it in like 3 different places that nobody necessarily has to see. So even our representative who lives in that town did not know this meeting was happening. And that happens for Democrats, it happens for Republicans. But very often in small towns, you'll be calling people, hey, listen, we got to get at least 3 of us together to put this committee together. And there's other towns where 20 people show up. And that's the reality of it. So, but I mean, I don't think anybody at this table, I mean, if you don't want to, that's fine, would ever have a problem saying, hey, listen, those views do not align with us. And anybody in this room or in this county that know any of the 13 members of the Franklin County delegation and know us, know that that's always going to be the case. We don't agree with these types of views. We don't agree with radical left-wing views, radical right-wing views. We don't agree with anything that is disparaging or denigrating to our society or to our people. So is that a clear enough statement is what I'm like. We can ask to get rules changed, and we have, but it's not just one party. But as far as us, we have never not condemned this person. We just never have not. The first time we ever met him, we didn't know who he was. As soon as we did, we said, listen, we don't want anything to do with you. That's really where it goes.
I appreciate you sharing that, and I appreciate any responsibility that you can take for maintaining and cultivating, proper democratic ideals, in your electoral process. And I hope that moving forward you can, be more aware, attuned, and focused on folks who are supporting the grassroots of your party and helping folks get elected. So I deeply appreciate the commitment to that.
I just want to reinforce, because when you say it that way, I want, see, when I talk about these issues, Zach, and this is where what bothers me, is I know you're talking about this one specific person, but it's all of us. It's your party and our party that all need to take don't shake your head, no, because your party has people who are out there calling people Nazis and other stuff right here in Franklin County. So, so it isn't just one side, and those people are in your circle. So everybody can do better. And if we can't look at ourselves in the mirror and say everybody should do better, we're not being honest.
And I just want to clarify that there's only one Nazi who's part of the party, and it's Ryan Roy, and he's in Berkshire. So I just want to reiterate that very firmly.
Cool. Any other? Yes, sir.
I just want to emphasize the importance of communicating frequently, too frequently, in my opinion. Many good things happen, but it is the squeaky, ugly wheel that gets a lot of exposure. And on the basis of that, we drill down on the negative, and then we start throwing snowballs at each other and hurting each other. But the good news, it's not lifted up. It's like sensationalism sells newspapers. And I'm saying that the good things which are happening 24/7 don't get the exposure. There's some media people here. They can agree with me, they write. But we also can articulate and find ways to articulate and underscore the positive things that do happen. Small example. When I was 11 years old, and 54 Supreme Court decision came down. was born in Tennessee, along with the Ku Klux Klan. We both were born in Tennessee. The Klan and their Black Legion, a lot of folks don't know about Black Legion, but they were the terrorist group who were part of the Klan, and they pulled out because Klan wasn't killing enough people. But the Klan and their vigilantes came to kill my grandfather because they wanted to send a message to the community at large, black folk in particular, that they didn't want black kids going to school, and white kids. So the night that they came, I was a kid, I didn't know what was going on, but I knew something was wrong. The night they came down the lane, black folk in the county and white folk in the county, because they knew George, my grandfather, came together and they had a powwow and those black guys left. I'm saying that we can come together on more than we do. We're what, some 660,000 folk in Vermont. We can be a model. There's a reference to Massachusetts being a model and whatever, but we are in a position geographically and size to be creative and lead in manners that's not done before, but is needed now, because there's a void here in our neighborhood. There's a void elsewhere. I didn't know anything about Juneteenth until somebody knocked on my door and said, Vermont might be receptive to Juneteenth. And I said, what's Juneteenth? So I'm saying that we put ourselves in those silos too frequently. And we don't have that much time. You really think about it. I turn left, I turn right when I come out of my driveway, and there's a graveyard or a cemetery that says, hey, we're waiting on you.
Okay.
So during this time that we have, we can make a difference. We can be known for something other than jumping on each other and throwing bricks at each other and things of that sort. Because figuratively and literally, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. I take the position that there's no such thing as retirement. It means that we have been promoted to another level so that we can do more. Because we have that body of experience and knowledge and skills. And we can do that. We can do that. We do more than changing Department of Defense to Department of War.
Randy will have the last word, and
Thank you.
thank you so much, by the way, for that.
You know, we can talk about our differences, we can talk about some folks who are within our parties that we don't agree with and who think are really bad people. But you know, those people are in the real minority in Vermont, and we should be very thankful. If we look back to our history in Vermont, when we had the McCarthy era during the 1950s, which reminds me a lot of some of the things that we see in our national politics today. It was Vermont's political leaders, the two U.S. senators, who really led the way to stop that behavior and to end the McCarthy era. And today, we have a tremendous amount of cooperation between the two parties in terms of particularly things like the issues that you're seeing right now in immigration and otherwise, in which Republicans and Democrats are together under the same roof and with many of the same ideas. When it comes to solving some of the problems that we see every day, yeah, sure, there are going to be differences, but there are differences even within parties. And so this is not an emergency from the standpoint of a fire to be put out. It's a recognition, though, that you do have small fires, and when we work together, putting those things out is what's most important. And I think we do a pretty darn good job of it. So thanks so much for all of you for coming today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.